prayers for all of you during this time of transition and figuring things out together. I pray that the guiding vision will be what Jesus invites in the gospel here, to be disciples. It's a word that, anyway, those of us who've been in the church for a long time, we've heard the word disciple, how many? Hundreds or even thousands of times. What does it mean? Am I a disciple? What does it mean that I am a disciple if I am? Because this is a profound truth about any parish or any Catholic institution. We exist to be disciples who make disciples. We exist to be disciples who make disciples. If that's not true, like, there's zero point to having a parish, right? Like, if we're not living as disciples, and that's typically, if you study diocesan history, and I encourage you to do so, or church history, right? Like, I am just amazed at the founding of churches and parishes in Wisconsin in the early years of settling Wisconsin. It's just the creativity, the collaboration, the hostilities and the difficulties and the adversity and the courage to help get a local church established and connect with immigrants and help them connect with God. And we were living as disciples who made disciples in those days. And then, so often the curse of living in an affluent nation. I mean, I'm grateful, and we'll celebrate 250 years as a nation. That's an amazing thing. And we have a lot of struggles in our nation. When Jesus comes again and tells us our story on the day of judgment, we're going to have a lot to talk about with him in our nation as well. And there's that tendency when we live comfortable, convenient lives that are easy in comparison to, at least to most humans who've ever lived. Who wants to take up your cross and follow Jesus and be a disciple then, right? Like, we forget this core invitation. And I love the question of just, when was it in my life that I decided to be a disciple of Jesus in the way that he talks about in this gospel, that I love Jesus more than I love my mother or my father. I love Jesus more than I love my own children. I am taking up my cross and following Jesus, dying with him, rising with him, and that is what my life is about. And I came to realize I was a pastor, as many of you know, for 11 years in the area here. And I think I was more than halfway through that time as pastor before, and tomorrow will be 23 years for me as a priest. It's like, I started to realize, wait a minute, I think I've been assuming that all of us are disciples because we're here. But did we ever make that decision? Maybe, maybe not. I was a year old when I was baptized. St. Paul talks about it in the second reading, that when I was baptized, I died with Christ and I rose with him to new life. And I believe that about my baptism. And even though I was a year old, I didn't make that decision. It was made for me. I ran around the altar, apparently. My grandma told me that story. And the priest said, well, maybe he'll be a priest. But I didn't decide at that moment. Now, there have been many moments in my life, actually, I'm not going to tell all those stories today, right, where the Lord caught my attention and invited me and said, will you follow me? And it's an invitation to suffer with Jesus in many cases. When you look at the early church, right, when the gospel was first proclaimed, so many adults and children and, entire families made that decision to become disciples, which in many cases meant we're going to spend 2 or 3 years doing penance before we even get to come in the doors of a church, or maybe we can hear the word of God proclaimed and then have to leave as catechumens, right? And it's a couple years of intense preparation before being plunged into the waters of baptism. And I know by getting baptized and becoming a Christian, my property might be confiscated, I might be arrested, I might be tortured, I might be killed. Sign me up. People did sign up in large numbers, right? Because they saw the witness of other disciples and said, that's different than all this other craziness in the world. And it's really an exciting time, I think, to be Catholic, very challenging. So many things have changed in the last few decades, and it's disorienting, it's hard. There's a lot to grieve, to say like, wow, this is not the way it used to be, and that's hard, and that's sad, and that's difficult, and we can be sad about that and talk to the Lord about that. And then also, people in large numbers are looking at the world around them and saying, there's no answers here. There's nothing here that can satisfy me. We live in a time where there's instant gratification, and whatever you want, and AI can make it happen faster, and anything that you want, whatever you want to indulge, whatever cross that is bothering you, get it out of your way, eliminate suffering. It's empty. It's all empty. Politicians who promise, if you vote for me, I'll fix everything, I'll take care of those people. That's a story as old as the human race. It's empty. Nothing against any things of this world or any politicians. It's just like only Jesus Christ risen from the dead, who will never die again. And St. Paul said that, like we know that to be true, but do we know that, right? Because what I find to be true for myself, and what I find to be true for many people in the church, at least some of the time, or even most of the time, is that we actually live in more fear than we realize. Like, we show up for daily life with a lot of fear and a lot of pressure that, oh my gosh, we have to get all these things right, and if we don't, it's all going to be bad. And we have to watch out for those people, and the world is so scary, and what happens, and what if, and what if, and what if, and Jesus Christ is Lord. He's died, he's risen. Like, we're on the winning side. The victory's won. We get plunged into the waters of baptism. We put our trust in Jesus. We follow him as disciples. He assures us we will suffer and die, which, truth in advertising. Jesus never for a moment made it sound like if you follow me, you're gonna, it's gonna be really, really easy. And yet he does say, my yoke is easy, my burden light, but his yoke is the cross. It's like, suffer with me, die with me, follow me through death to new life, be my disciples. He sends us out. We sang the song at the end of the ordination mass this morning, go make of all disciples. Eagerly we went out from the cathedral. Day of great joy, the bells were ringing, people in the city like seeing 100 priests and bishops and others walk out like, what's going on? The church is alive, Jesus is alive. We had over 100 adults baptized in the diocese at Easter again this year. Like, the last 6 years in a row, we have more people coming to Mass every Sunday overall in our diocese. There's beautiful things happening. There are new people coming for the first time to get to know Jesus. Are we wanting to be disciples who make disciples, right? And that's a big question. The words that Jesus says in the gospel shake things up. It shocks us. Wait, I have to love my mom or my dad, love Jesus more than my mother and father, than my own children, if you have children, right? Like, love Jesus more? How's that possible? God is more, right? And he shakes it up with our parish existence. It's like we get used to things being a certain way, almost like a club that feels familiar. And it's nice to have connection. But if we're not careful, that comfortable club then becomes very unwelcoming to those that are in the world that are looking for good news of Jesus, right? And when they find us, are they going to be finding disciples who are excited to be disciples of Jesus and who are excited that they're considering it, right? And not trying to make them do things or sign them up to work our stuff, but ready to walk with them patiently as they discover the fullness of truth in Jesus Christ. And they see in us not people who are right and everybody else is wrong, because we don't have all the answers. We know that Jesus has all the answers, and we know to be in a covenant with him. We know to come to Mass again and again, because in Jesus, we have everything. In Jesus, we have the victory. When people see us living that way, like the early Christians, seeing that our joy that no one can take away is different than anything this world offers, our churches will be overflowing. We exist to be disciples who make disciples, to follow Jesus, to take up our cross, to be one with him in death and in new life, and to be eager that others discover that same relationship with him. Have we made that decision? And maybe we made it a long time ago. Do we want to renew that decision? Every time we come into the church, we put our hand in the holy water, and that's actually what we're doing if we think about it. We're renewing that commitment to die and rise with Jesus and be a disciple. May we be renewed in that invitation today and be disciples who make disciples.